This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that you are having a wonderful time here, kind of what I would call in the cradle, where there's kind of, this is a week of blur. There's really not a whole lot that seems to be going on between Christmas and New Year's, as people are just kind of taking some vacation time, taking a breather after a busy Christmas and Hanukkah holiday, and also after then wrapping up packages and everything else that's been going on. It's just, again, kind of more of a quiet time, it seems like, that we're having now during this particular time. And so I hope you have a chance then, as you're listening to this podcast, that you might have some additional time and some funds from your shows you've been doing, perhaps to help us by supporting the Magic Word and becoming a friend of the Magic Word with your financial donation and becoming a friend of the Magic Word. Just go over to the magicwordpodcast.com, and there you'll see a link that will say join the Friends of Magic Word. You can figure some stuff out how to go from there. Well, as we start to go into the new year, there were some people who have some greetings to give you into the new year. I had asked if anybody wanted to give a particular holiday greeting as we started into the Christmas season, and we had a few people do that. And then I asked if anybody wanted then to say something for the new year. And we then have a couple of people who now want to share their greeting for the new year. So first, let's welcome Mr. Brent Lipp.
Hello, this is Brent Lipp from Hannibal, Missouri, talking to you a few days before Christmas, wanting to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and continue to go out and do magic. Remember to trust God, and you're loved.
And now we will hear from Tom Vorjahan.
This is Tom Vorjahan in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I want to wish everybody a very merry holiday season and the best wishes for 2023. You know, I've been friends with Scott Wells since the mid-'80s. I believe we bumped into each other the first time at a Austin Magic auction and have been friends ever since. And it's actually been growing and getting to be better friends here in recent years. My wish for all of you, since we are so connected and Scott's done such a great job, find somebody in magic that you either don't know very well or you want to build a little bit stronger friendship and make that a goal for 2023. And I think the world will be a greater place. Scott, thank you for what you do for magic and for us and for all of you. Happy 2023.
Thank you guys very much for your holiday greeting, and I, in return, wish both of you and your families a very happy and prosperous and healthy new year as well, as I do for the rest of the listening audience. Well, on to this week's episode as we close out this year. This was an episode that I had recorded with Seth Kramer when we were in Quebec earlier this year at the F.I.S.M convention. So it's been sitting there for a while, but we've had a lot of other things that have kind of pushed it on down to now, because it's like most of our episodes, they are not time sensitive. They are things that have relevance any time of the year or throughout the year. So that's why I say if you go back into the archives, you'll be able then to actually learn some stuff from these truisms that stay true from month to month, year to year, decade to decade. So a lot of the information that magicians have told us over the years on the Magic Word podcast, you can learn from it then as well. This is one of those things that has some great benefit for you to listen to then as well. Seth has decades of experience working as a trade show magician, where he's also done bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, restaurants, cocktail parties, hospitality suites. He's just a wealth of information, particularly when it comes to corporate affairs and working for executives and pitching their messages and that kind of thing then too. There are some things that he not only teaches, but he can share with you and has shared in his lecture notes, a modern trade show handbook, and he has a special offer that he is making, and we're going to be giving away a couple of those. And if you hang around to the end of this episode, you can hear how that you can sign up to perhaps win a copy for yourself. So let's get right to it with my friend Mr. Seth Kramer here on The Magic Word. Today I'm with someone who many of you may have seen, may have heard his lecture. You may have seen it on Penguin, may have seen it perhaps at a convention from time to time. He has delivered his lecture on trade show contracts and everything like that, and is one of the top trade show guys in the world here today. And we have been talking in the past, as you listen to the Magic Word podcast, with several trade show guys. I wouldn't say this is another one of them. He is someone who has contributed a lot to help make trade show magicians better magicians, and but it's not just trade shows we're going to talk about, because you got so much else as far as your history goes with restaurant magic and cocktail parties and hospitality suites, and there are a bunch of different directions. Please welcome my guest from New York City. Here he is, Seth Kramer. Hey, Seth.
Hey, how you doing, Scott?
Fantastic. Glad to have you here, and we've been talking about this for quite some time. It's good to be sitting across from each other.
Yeah, thanks.
Here we are in actually Quebec, Canada, and we're here at F.I.S.M. And so, is this your first F.I.S.M? Have you been to one overseas before?
I've been to 3 F.I.S.M. This is my 4th F.I.S.M. We were in Dresden. I did one in Lisbon and one in The Hague. So this will be my 4th.
I went to the one in The Hague, and I didn't go to the one in Dresden. What was the other one you said?
In Lisbon.
In Lisbon. Didn't go to that one either. I'd been to a few others in Sweden and elsewhere. So
not too far from home.
Looking forward to, you could have almost driven up. What, about a 7-hour drive or so?
12-hour drive.
12. It's a good little drive
yeah.
from the city. So by using New York City as your base, you're able really then to, as far as trade shows goes, or anything else for that matter, being able to fly anywhere because obviously of international airports. Do you find yourself, when you're performing a lot overseas, that New York's a good place to be as opposed to flying in from Los Angeles or something? Or?
Oh, yeah, New York is a very central hub. I mean, it's really easy to travel. I lived most of my life on Long Island, New York, and we had 2 major international airports, JFK and LaGuardia close by. So always easy to route somewhere without having to make hardly any connections. You can get almost anywhere from there. Right.
I was just talking with Charlie McFarland, another mutual friend of ours who is a trade show guy, and he was saying he was getting kind of to the point that he's getting a little tired of the travel, because he said he's mainly been working in Dubai, and he said there's a 30-hour flight back and forth.
That's a long trip. That is a long trip, and just to recover from that travel, you need 2 days to recover before you can even do your shows. So you need to get there, at least a day and a half to 2 days before your show starts, just to regenerate your energy.
That's good advice. I really hadn't thought so much about that for international travel, because I'm thinking the shows I've done, they've been international, been in Canada, like when I've done Calgary, like some of the other things, but mostly just across the U.S., and our time zones are not too far apart and reasonable.
No. When you're going and you're having a 5 or 6 hour or a 7-hour time change,
differential,
that's a big difference. So you want to make sure that you're well rested. And I always tell my clients, that's why I need to. If I'm flying internationally, I need to fly business class, so I'm well rested, and I need a day to recover. Need a day to recover before the show starts.
When you are booking flights, have you before had the company's travel agency book for you, or do you always say, I'm on my own, I'll do it, and just charge you, or how does that work?
When I first started many, many years ago, I did use the corporate travel department, but as the years went on, I found it easier. But not that I found it easier. I just found it more efficient for me to handle my own travel arrangements, because sometimes there were shows that were overlapping. I would be going from one show to another.
Sure.
And it's hard to call a corporate travel agent and have them change a ticket that's already been ticketed, and then another company's paying for that part of the ticket. It just got too cumbersome to do that. And you really can't ask another company to front another company's air travel, and then I'm splitting the charges between the 2 companies. It just gets messy.
Sure. I assume, however, that you allow them to go ahead and book your lodging because you want to stay in the same hotel as the rest of...
Exactly. Yeah, that I always allow them to do. Again, I even for a domestic show, I always try and get in a day in advance. Just so I can take care of my registration, take care of checking out the booth space, making sure my table is there, making sure my sound system works, and that everything is have all the ducks in a row.
Yeah, right. And when you are traveling, as you said, it's good to be there plenty in advance. I was, speaking of Dubai, had a company that wanted me to come over, and they asked for a quote. But the prices, and same thing like with you, it's like I'll book my transportation, you get the lodging, and as I was doing that, the transportation kept changing. The closer we got to the date, and they couldn't make a decision, they couldn't get out the bubble, and it was going from $1,200 to $1,500 to $2,000, and it gets to be kind of ridiculous. And I was having to go back and revise my contract with them. So in a situation like that, do you give them deadlines or say this contract is to a certain point and then no longer valid, or what would you do in a case like that?
Yeah, that's a tough situation. I mean, I probably wouldn't do that research. I say this is what the ticket is now, but whatever the ticket's going to be, I don't put a markup on the flight.
It is what it is.
Whatever the ticket's going to be is what the ticket's going to be. They know that it's a business class flight. They know the earlier they book it, the less expensive it's going to be. And if they wait, till they make a decision. That's really going to be on them.
That's good advice.
That's going to be on them.
I should have talked to you earlier, because that would have been the way to do it, to say, look, here's my price for doing the show per day and per diem that I need.
Plus this.
Yeah, plus a flight, whatever it happens to be, and I will pass that through.
Yeah. As they say in the restaurants, market price.
Market price. Yeah, whatever the lobster is today.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. And in your book of, what is the lecture called as far as the trade show lecture book?
The Modern Trade Show Handbook?
Yes, that is, I think, the Bible. For anyone who is in a trade show and wants to do a trade show. I was in contracts before and understand, and I've written a lot of hundreds of contracts, but it's been in another industry in another lifetime. But for trade shows, this is completely different also. And with your experience, it is so professional. And to have the contract with you when I go in to talk with a client and have that already out and available, and then hand a pen and say, okay, we've talked about everything. You've said, okay, go ahead and sign this.
Yeah, and that's the way I was able to do it, back again, many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And things change. Now I don't get to see my clients face to face all that often. Mm-hmm. Since the pandemic, it's been kind of interesting. Zoom has been a really great selling tool. Mm-hmm. To be able to go on Zoom and meet with clients face to face over Zoom has really been a real benefit. A real benefit to be able to do that.
Have those been new clients?
Yeah, these are new clients. My old clients, I don't need to see them face to face unless we're doing a pre-show meeting. But new clients, it's just a great selling tool. They get to see me face to face, and they, I could even demo a few things if need be. They could ask me questions. I just think it's easier to do this over a Zoom call than it would be for me to try and describe it in an email.
Exactly.
If you read my book, you'll see that I'm not a huge fan of magic videos in general, so I don't really believe in having a demo tape. It's okay to have one. It's okay to put little snippets together, but I think, and I've said this many times before in my lecture and in the book, it just gives the client reasons to say no. I don't like the way he speaks. I don't like his accent. He's too old. He's too young. I don't like his, this or whatever. His hair's too long. His hair's too short. His hair's too gray.
Right.
And just people make decisions sometimes based on things that just make no difference in what my show is, or what my capabilities are, or what any performer's capabilities are. You try and get a perfect demo tape, and I do have snippets that if a client insists, I can send them a snippet, but I won't send them a whole.
Now, when you say a snippet, do you mean 3 to 5 minutes?
Oh, no, not even.
Not even.
We're talking 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
So it's just kind of a flash film, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So just to see the crowds that I draw, to see the people there, maybe 60 seconds of me actually performing and injecting a message into the presentation.
But do you find that by using a Zoom call, it is as personal? Of course, they can see you kind of eyeball to eyeball, as opposed to, do you get the same kind of feel by over Zoom as you would if you're actually in an office with them. I guess it's the next best thing.
Yeah, it's the next best thing. Okay. I don't have to fly to to New Atlanta York, to see them. I don't have to fly to wherever to see them, and it's expensive. I mean,
just for a meeting that may or may not yield any results.
I would have to charge them to do that now. Mm-hmm. It's just too expensive to do that, and I tell them, I'll fly out there, and if you do book me, I will, try and give you some sort of a credit for the money that you spent to fly me out, or we'll work it out some way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if they insist on flying me out, then that they have to. I'm not going to do it on my own dime. It just doesn't make sense anymore.
No, it wouldn't, because they could use you against other people too. Say, hey, we had someone else we're looking at, and we had them come out. And
with the technology now, it really doesn't make sense to have to go there. If it's a local client, I live in the New York area, so if it's someone New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, I will have no problem, meeting them face to face if they insist on doing that. But to have to travel, take a flight somewhere, unless somebody's absolutely insistent on it and they agree to pay for it, then there's really no need to do that.
Well, when I've been across the table with them, I find whenever that I could say, well, let me just show you something, and then put something in their hand, or have them pick a card, or do a sponge rabbits, or something, that they are involved with, and it's just the expression on their face when they're holding something.
Of course.
Obviously there's nothing, but we have, over the last couple of years, and due to COVID, have learned to adapt to Zoom and to do things that can be done. Just think of a card or name a card or whatever. You don't have to have them pick one.
Something as simple as a brainwave deck is great on Zoom, and it's something as interactive, and it's something that they can see, and it's amazing. I mean, brainwave or invisible deck is one of the greatest tricks ever.
It really is. In fact, I've talked with several dealers who will not share the invisible deck with new people who come in for the first time, although it is a great and easy beginner trick. They say if we do, nothing can top that, because they'll come back and say, what else you got? Well, nothing's going to be as good as that. So you got to feed them a little at a time until you finally, about the sixth time, introduce them to the invisible deck. And to be honest,
the brainwave deck and the invisible deck is something that I don't even do in my live show. It's just something I don't even do.
Now, when it comes to performing then over a Zoom meeting, let's say with a first-time client or something, do you have things ready to go, or you have like an outline that you talk with them, which would lead into, for an example, let me show you a trick kind of a thing?
So going into a meeting, we talk about, I kind of have an agenda. I want people, the first thing I want to know is more about them. I want to hear from them what their expectations are, rather than me trying to figure out what they need. I know what they need, but I want to hear from them what they need. So I try and get as much information from them first. I say, tell me about past shows that you've done. What have you done to draw traffic to your booth? How did that work out for you? What are your expectations for the show? Most of the people who I meet with are people who've actually seen my show, so they know what my show is, and they already like it. At that point, it's a question of seeing if it's going to be a good fit for their product, for their company. I know it's going to be a good fit, but I have to convince them that it's going to be a good fit. It's really, for most products, it's a good fit.
Yeah.
There are some products that might not be the best fit.
Have you ever walked away from a company like that?
I've never done that. I've never gone to a company and said they want me, and I said, well, my show's not a good fit for you. That would be not good business, in my opinion. But there are definitely products, and I call them in my book, I call them invisible products, things that are not easy to demo. Insurance, for example. How you demonstrate an insurance policy, or things like that, things that are invisible,
intangible,
intangible, that you can't really demo. Exactly. You can't demo the product. A product demonstration is great, and I've done so many shows. I've done probably more than 600 trade shows in my career, and I've done pretty much the whole run of different types of products, services that companies have, and I always find a way to make it work. I always find a way to make that work.
Do you do very many illusions? I know some guys like Paul Gertner or other people do not only close-up, but also they'll be doing like the Wakeling sawing or something.
Right, and I've
origami.
done that. Yeah, if we have the space and the budget for it, I've done the a cube zag, for example, Jim Steinmeier's Modern Art.
Do you have that in your warehouse?
Yeah, I have those now in my storage facility. Yep, those are great illusions because they can be done relatively close up
and surrounded,
and they can be done surrounded, and they bear repetition.
Good point.
Yeah, so it's not the thing that I sell a lot of these days, but it's there if a company wants to do that. So
really you're pitching more of one-on-one and trying to attract a crowd to the booth with just cards and things, or what kinds of...
Yeah, my close-up set. My Penguin lecture that I did, that you mentioned at the beginning, starts off with my actual trade show act. So I do my real act that I do for real people. It's what I call my core set, which is a card routine, a ring on string, a card in an impossible location, and an ending wrap-up trick that I do. And it's
so four tricks, basically.
Four pieces.
And how long?
12 minutes.
Okay.
And it's designed to be modular, so I can put things in and take things out and change it up if I need. I have probably 30 things I can choose from that I've done, each of them tens of thousands of times, from, so maybe this show I won't do... this ending, I'll do another ending, or I'll do a 10-card poker deal instead of an ambitious card routine, or I'll do the Wellington Magic Switchboard to open instead of, Quadruplicate Mystery from Paula Paul. So,
well, sometimes you find at trade shows, like I'm sure I do, is where people will come back and say, hey, show this guy such and such, and you start seeing a repeat. It's like they must really, at this show, dig this trick. You know, and I, of course, built into that trick is the pitch of about the product and everything. So they kind of got to go through everything else as well. But
yeah, and everything has a pitch, and I don't like people to see the same things over and over again.
So
although
what do you do?
I do what?
So what do you do?
Yeah, so I think my show is fairly bulletproof, and I can say that because I've had clients who've had me in their booth for 10 years or more and still have no idea how many of my things are done. I mean, of course, seeing it that many times over so many days, over so many years, I don't care if you're Houdini. They're gonna pick something up,
right?
Little things here and there, and I try and be. I never tell them if they're right or wrong, but you try and not give it all away. And there are certain things that they never figure out, and those are the things that I know that are bulletproof, and those are the most important secrets.
So, trying to customize a show for a client. Do you take the product and what it is they're trying to sell? Like I say, when you're talking with the client to say, what is it you're trying to sell? What do you want to get across over here? What is it, the thrust of this? What is your outcome? And once you figure that out, then do you try to get the tricks structured around and design your message, or do you try to force fit into that series of tricks, 4 or 5 tricks that you have in your arsenal to fit the subject?
It's not that I force fit it. So what I do is again, going back to the trade show book, there's a questionnaire. So it's always, rather than me trying to figure out what their message is, it's much better when the client comes to me and says, this is what we need them to walk away knowing. And that's basically what the questionnaire is designed to do. Find out what the most important message is, what they, the most important 6 bullet points that they want everybody to hear over and over again, and, basically deliver the message that they want delivered. And they tell me what that message is. And the way my show is structured, I can take their message and fit it into those core 4 tricks. And it's not so much that the tricks are I don't know how to say this properly. The tricks are not a visual indication of the message. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I understand.
So not a visual reference to the message.
You don't say, like, this ring represents service.
I try not to do that. I try not to do things like that. I basically will find places in my routine where I could pause and then explain a couple of things.
Okay. Put
a little piece of a message. Then in another spot, pause, and then put in another piece of the message.
I mean, you be doing the trick and then pause and say...
Or in between tricks.
Okay. So you could do a trick just straight like you normally would,
Correct.
and then, okay, we're done with that trick, but while you're here, let me tell you about this product, and then let me show you another trick.
And sometimes we can do that, and it kind of flows. Sometimes the message is embedded within the trick. Sometimes it's embedded between tricks.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it's just a different style. I try to embed everything that I want to say about the company in every trick.
Yeah, you want to hit bullet points.
Sure.
But there are just some tricks that just don't allow you to do those pauses.
I agree with that, which is why that I would try to design tricks or think of, we all know too many tricks. We just need to have good presentations. I think the trade shows give you a perfect opportunity to write a script for a presentation for the tricks that we know. So once I know what it is the client wants, then I think, okay, what tricks can I put into this to deliver that message?
Right. And I can do that to some extent. I do like to do the tricks that they say to have you 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that, the 10,000 practice runs.
Sure.
Those are the ones I like to do. And of the 30 tricks that I do, I can say 90% of those have the 10,000
hours
or way more for some of them, 10,000 or more performances. And I like to give those, I like to use those rather than finding something that I've only done a handful of times. It's that I'm going to have to think about while I'm doing the show and have to think about the presentation and think about the method. And, it's not muscle memory at that point. It's me thinking of the script and then me thinking of how does this new trick work? And it's just too many things to think about. So I'd rather take the routines that I've done 10,000 times.
So you're not thinking about the trick.
So I'm not thinking
You're
about
concentrating
the
about the
trick
company and
exactly.
the message.
The message is all in my head.
Yeah. Changing subjects a little bit, you've been around longer than most. I had talked with Anders Boulanger, and he's a trade show magician, but hasn't been working the number of years you have. Going back to the beginning and before you, how would you say the trade shows have changed, let's say from Bud Dietrich and Dick Ryan and those guys to where we were pre-COVID and where we are now?
When you say change, do you mean as far as protocols?
Yes.
I mean, not health protocols?
Yes, and as far, in other words, are companies more prone to have magic as a drawing tool back then or now, or is it the same as far as using a magician? I mean, I remember that Francis Ireland in the Success book was talking about magicians, and there was an interesting and very excellent article, and a lot of research had been done, and they were talking about the percentage of people who stop at booths if you have, let's say, showgirls, or you have a celebrity sports figure who's signing autographs versus a magician or a band or somebody, whatever. You get my point. So it's just things have come and gone. I mean, showgirls were not socially acceptable anymore to attract to a booth as it used to be, certainly. But different things I'm saying that have changed and in the messages and whether companies are really wanting to have and looking for magic and magicians now.
I think they are. I think magic is very popular now, with all the magic that's on television. I think it's a very I think we're in another golden age of magic at this point.
I can agree with that.
A lot of magic on television, and people, it's really in people's consciousness now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that I think it's a good thing. I don't see that it's really changed all that much. I think companies that would entertain an alternative marketing presentation, such as a magician in their booth, are going to still do that. There are companies that would never entertain that idea, and they're still around as well. So it's just a matter of finding the right company and finding the right people who are going to, kind of embrace the idea of having a
Right.
magician in their booth.
I'm sure you, like me, have had some companies who are calling and saying for the first time and saying, we haven't ever had a magician, but they're going to be having magic as a theme for this year's convention, and we wanted to have a magician, and we have never worked with one. We don't know anything about you.
Right.
How do you? I mean, that's like a bird nest on the ground. I mean, they're looking for a magician to begin with, but you're trying to sell them on the fact that, hey, I can also tie in a message. I mean, in other words, people are looking a little bit differently. Normally, they come to you because they want to find something to enhance their message, but now they're just looking for a party magician, basically.
Right. And I try to always tell them it's not so much about the magic that I do, although because it's a magic theme, it's going to be a great fit. Mm-hmm. I say, but more than a great fit, I'm also going to be able to promote your company. Mm-hmm. So that's the advantage that you're going to get hiring someone like myself.
But they don't realize that or even know what you do necessarily.
Well, I tell them what I do. I say, not only am I going to be able to fit the theme of the show, I will also be able to promote your company as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a marketing tool rather than just a magic show.
And do you sometimes also do the presentations for them, or you just when they do have speakers? Do they ever? I'm sure they do from time to time. Ask you to do the speaking.
I will do a demo. For them. Like if they have a product demo, I've done medical devices, I've done automotive products, and I learn a quick. I come in the day before and stay with one of the salespeople, and they'll spend a couple of hours with me, and we'll go through a quick pitch, and I'll learn how the product works, and I'll demonstrate it. I at the end of my show, rather than turning it over to a salesperson of the company, I will take over that demo and then do the demo and then turn them over to the sales team.
But you're not doing any magic. You're basically acting as a salesman.
No, I'm doing
you do magic as well.
I'm gathering the people with the magic.
Yes.
Delivering my sales messages, and say, by the way, this is how this product works. Huh. And sometimes, I have the thing, it's so easy a magician could do it. So it depends on the product.
Well, that's the thing, as I've talked on this podcast about before, where people then would come to you at the show and say, ask more in-depth questions, in which you'll say, well, you need to talk to Joe. Well, don't you work for them? Well, today I do.
Okay.
How do you answer that question?
I tell them, they give me information on a need-to-know basis. So that's what I tell. That's what they.
And I think you need to know that, and this guy will be glad to tell you.
Exactly. So I said, they give me this much information. You need this much information.
Yeah.
So,
but do they then say, oh, so you're just a hired gun for the day?
Yes.
And eventually
I don't lie to them.
Yeah.
You tell them.
Try to say you're an employee.
You say, but this, here's the expert. Here's the real expert. And,
right.
But I'm glad you enjoyed my presentation.
What's one of the coolest gifts that of course, you're always trying to give things out, and you've seen some pretty cool things out.
Oh, there's so many. Again, companies sometimes they don't quite get it. They do these raffles
for iPads and
stuff. And Apple products,
golf clubs.
Yeah, and my opinion, if you're giving away an Apple product, all you're doing really is you're
helping Apple.
Yeah, you're pumping Apple.
Huh. Hadn't thought of that.
Or the golf club company,
so if you sell pumps, you should be giving away
give away a pump. Give away a free consultation. Give away something that
is about your company.
Yeah, about your company.
Huh.
As a grand prize. And as far as little giveaways, God, there's so many of them that are fun. Fun little giveaways. My favorite is the screaming flying monkey.
What is that?
Oh, it's a cute little monkey on a slingshot. And you put it on your two fingers, and you pull back the tail, and it's wearing a cape.
Yeah.
With the company logo embroidered on the cape, and you pull it back, and it flies through the air, about 20 feet in the air, and it screams as it's flying. So
I have seen that. I just wanted to hear your explanation, description of it.
That's I thought was one of the clever giveaway.
It is, because that's something they can come home and then let the kids annoy them with.
Yeah, it's fun, though. It's a fun one.
And that's most of the things. It seems like when people are going through trade shows, they'll take like a picnic basket or trick-or-treat bag full of stuff and, start getting things. And so that's why I think it's an excellent idea that they should be giving away something that's going to be from the company that, or maybe a percentage off, or like I say, a free consultation if it happens to be an expensive product or something.
Exactly.
That would have value because, most of it goes in the trash or goes to the kids.
Yeah, or a lot of companies these days have a policy against accepting any gift.
Well, that's true too.
So to give away a gift that's worth $800 or $1,000, some companies won't allow their employees to accept it.
Well, flash drives are a big thing I've noticed over the last several years that companies are giving, because rather than a brochure, they'll give you a flash drive. It doesn't have a lot of room on it necessarily. It doesn't do you any good to erase that and use that for yourself, because it only has maybe a gig on there or something. But anyhow, yeah, you get some free flash drives. Boy, say that 3 times.
Yeah, that's a popular gift. There's a lot. There's so many things. There's still people giving away, personalized pens. Some people they don't put a lot of thought into their trade show giveaway. But there's so many companies out there who do the imprinted premiums. You just have to be a little creative, try and tie it into your messaging somehow, or like I said, even better, for a bigger prize. Something that's actually from your company.
Do you talk with the companies also and try to give them some sort of trade show advice 101 as far as people working the booth, saying don't be drinking and eating behind the booth, and different tips like that? Do you go and meet with them? Or
I don't really do that. What I do is, and I don't really want to be in the the boothsmanship game.
Like the booth policeman?
Yeah, but actually someone who's teaching people how to do trade show selling. To come in a day before and do a full day training seminar on, that's not really, that's not my expertise.
Okay.
I know a lot about it, but I probably wouldn't enjoy doing that. But what I like to do is come in the morning of the show and meet with the booth staff, and as they're doing their pre-show meeting, telling everybody, this is the scanner, this is how the scanner works for the lead retrieval. This is where the cold water bottles are in the refrigerator. This station is Station A, this is Station B, this is Demo 3, this is Demo 4. And this is Seth Kramer, and he is our crowd draw. He's going to be, and they give me anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to tell the employees the best ways. I tell them the best way to use me at the show to their advantage. That I'm not there to just gather a crowd and then let the crowd leave.
So what do you tell them? What is the best way of using you?
Well, the best way to use me is it's a team effort. It's a team effort. My job is to get the crowd there, and your job is to make sure that you don't let them leave without, having at least one point of a contact.
Yeah.
That everybody should have one point of contact, either getting a badge scanned, be at the booth, look at the people who are there, look at the badges.
Look at the badges, right.
We're at F.I.S.M right now. We all have a badge.
Right.
So you look at the badge, see the names on the badge, see what company they work for.
Sure.
Don't let me gather a crowd and watch my show, never look at the badges, and then at the end of my show, just let them walk away.
Right.
Be there, try and be, proactive in engaging them. I only know so much, and I tell them, I only know so much. I have a list of information that I know that I'm going to deliver, but it's your job to be there to answer questions. I don't want to have to come running to find you. I want somebody here at the end of every presentation that I do to answer questions. Things like that. Those are the things that I try and tell them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those are good points to make sure you tell people. But when you say wanting to use you, I was thinking, for an example, they may be talking with one of their favorite clients, and they'll say, "Hey, have you seen our magician yet?"
Right, and that's
then
another.
You come over and you'll do.
That's another thing that I talk
trick
about. Correct. I tell them, if they have a special client, if they have a number one customer, or somebody, or a brand new client that's oh, have you met Seth? Here, come.
Right,
and then I start my show right there, and they get a presentation. I do have my show is, I won't say timed, to specific times of the day. I do promise my client up to 2 shows per hour for the duration of the day.
Yeah.
But if a salesperson comes over, or a VP comes over and says, "Have you met Seth?" and I'll start a show if I need to and do that for them. And it's a great way for me to get the show started.
That's good advice also, to have a start and stop time, much like I've always compared street magicians and buskers to trade show guys because you're doing the same thing. You're trying to stop a crowd, and you got to start and finish. And you, at the end of busking, you're trying to get people to put money in the hat, and here you're trying to get people to walk into the booth.
Right, and to collect leads.
And collect leads, exactly. And get those cards scanned and everything in there. Some companies have like a little club area, if you will, that's a private VIP room, either upstairs or they got a room or something. I assume that you've been asked to work those areas exclusively then also? And
I have.
How do you interact with clients there? Because, in other words, that's a hard pitch place. I mean, if those are top clients are coming in, usually they're clients you already know. So how do you interact with them?
So that's more of a hospitality type of a situation.
And that's where I'm leading to.
So it's a hospitality situation within the booth.
Yeah.
I haven't done it all that often, although for the I used to do the shows for the men's clothing, the men's apparel industry, and I had a client in that industry, and that's what they hired me to do, to be there. It was an order-taking show. They would write business at the show.
Wow.
Most trade shows, business isn't written.
Right.
This particular show, which took place in Las Vegas twice a year, clients would come in and actually write their business.
Was that the Magic Show?
Yeah, the Magic. It's called the Magic Show.
Yeah.
Men's Apparel Guild in California. MAGIC.
It's the biggest show in Vegas.
It was a huge show.
It's as big or larger than the electronics consumer. No,
I don't remember. It used to be close to 100,000 people would come through there. It was a huge show. And my client decided, rather than have me they knew who their customers were. They didn't need me to bring in new customers. They knew all their clients. They had all of their customers lined up with appointments. So my job was to make sure that while they were waiting for their sales rep, if they were running long, if a sales rep was running long with another appointment, rather than send the people away and have them come back, have me there to keep them in the booth to engage them for the 5, 10, 12, 15 minutes while we're waiting, instead of having to leave and come back, to keep them at the booth until the salesperson was ready. So that was my job.
Well, speaking of hospitality suites, that's where I was eventually wanting to lead to. Do you see that as being as start to say lucrative, or perhaps as many of those shows as there used to be? And I say go up into their suites after hours of having a hospitality suite. Do they still do? I've done very few. I do more trade shows than I do suites.
Yeah, well, I do in one particular, just in the petrochemical industry, petroleum refining, that industry. I do have 2 clients there, and they still do in fact, the entire reason I'm there is for their hospitality suites in the evening. They have a small trade show. They're usually within a hotel, a Hilton or a Marriott, and it's a small trade show. Maybe there are 30 booths at the trade show, but the evenings is where you have every company that's at the show, 35 or so to 50 companies, and each of them have a hospitality suite in the hotel. Yeah, and they bring me there to keep the customers out of their competitors' hospitality suites. Of course,
right.
So my job is to do my magic there and entertain them.
So now
keep people there.
This would go back to your restaurant days, I guess, and everything of trying to work tables or cocktail parties and things like that as well. But as far as
quite a few of those as well, and still do.
But as far as trying to have a variety of material, because you want to keep them there. I mean, you talk about having an act for the trade show of 4 or 5 core things that you'd be doing over and over and over, and people will come back to see. But when you're in the context, particularly trying to keep them from going to someone else's hospitality suite, do you have just a pockets full of stuff that you say, well, let me show you something, or another card trick? I mean, you got endless card tricks.
I have endless card tricks, and I have a lot of material. Like I said, I have about 30 different things, and that's plenty. I mean, that is plenty.
Sure.
And I don't go continuously. Again, I try and run it more than me going to them. I try and have them come to me.
Sure.
So kind of like doing almost like the trade show setup within the hospitality suite. So I have a station within the suite, and every so often I will do a show or start a show or do something or grab people over. New people come into the room, and I'll do something for them. and every once in a while I'll do a full 15 or 20-minute set.
Right.
So it's an interesting
Dynamic
way of using me.
Yeah. But again, going back to my point, are you finding there are fewer or more or the same number of hospitality
Well, I
suites
don't
as
do
there
that
were?
many of them, but for this particular industry, I still do about the same
Okay.
number.
So it varies from industry.
Yeah, it varies from industry to industry. This particular industry is the one I do it the most for. And I still do, probably 4 of them a year.
And talking about the invisible type of thing that's harder to try to sell, do you find that to be more challenging and fun, or what industry is your favorite?
I don't really have a favorite industry.
I mean, some people like to work the toy industry because you got a lot of fun things to play with. And
Yeah, I always find that
I think Charles Green, like working the pharmaceuticals, I think that's amazing to be able to remember all of those drugs and things.
Absolutely. And that was never, my. I do a lot of high tech, high tech companies. I do a lot of stuff in the petroleum refining industries. I do stuff in the medical industry, not necessarily pharmaceutical, but medical device manufacturing, things of that nature. So I always tell people I know a little bit about a lot of things. So I always learn something, and I find it interesting to learn, and I always found it fascinating to learn about new technology before it hits, the marketplace, the general marketplace. So I always found that really to be the most interesting part of the job.
When you, in your lecture notes, again, talk about the contract, what are some of the most important things that people should remember if they don't have a copy of your notes, which in a minute we'll talk about where they could go to get that. But what's most important that people should have in their contract?
Well, my contract is more, and I don't call it a contract, I call it a confirmation letter. That's the big difference. I went to law school, but I'm not a lawyer, and I never practiced law. But the most important thing that I learned is that everybody understands all of the rules. Everybody understands everything.
Yeah.
I don't make it complicated. It's my name. I'm working for such and such a company on such and such a date, such and such a place. I will do so many shows over so many hours, and I describe that, and there's a particular way that I word it so that I'm not being taken advantage of by the companies, which you learn the hard way. So just everything is just spelled out. It's more of a confirmation letter than a contract. Do you understand? I say, this is where I'll be. This is how many days I'll need to stay. This is how much it costs. You need to pay for my airfare, my hotel, my meals, my ground transportation.
That's
and everybody,
a good point.
it's just a list of, it's a letter that just lays everything out. I'm going to arrive this day. I'm going to leave this day.
Right.
And those are the things, you just lay it out for them, and it's pretty simple. I have a pretty simple cancellation policy, which is you can't cancel, but depending on the situation, I can credit a deposit towards a future show because I don't really, I just try to just make that very, people can't cancel the last minute.
Yeah, unless the company goes out of business or something. I mean, during COVID, that there were situations
Correct.
perhaps like that. There always going to be some.
There are exceptions, of course.
Yeah, but what I like about that is it's written in plain English, so it's not legalese necessarily.
No legalese at all.
Yeah, so they feel as if that I understand exactly, like we're just talking right now, what this letter says and what the meaning is. They still have to run that through legal, but for the most part,
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is straightforward. Right. There's really not much I have ever had in using that confirmation letter that they've come back and said, asked me questions or didn't understand or legal
very
said,
simple.
Yeah. And it's only, I think about 6 pages or something, including the execution pages. Is it 4 pages maybe?
My confirmation letter?
Yeah.
Oh, probably 2 pages.
Okay, maybe I expanded mine a little bit. So mine's like 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah, maybe 2 pages. It depends on, I guess, how you format it. It could be 3 pages because sometimes the first page comes out printed a little funky. But, it's basically 2 to 3 pages.
Yeah.
But it's very simple to understand.
But that goes kind of the heart of one of the things I think, and I've been trying to impress on people who are working on a part-time basis, full-time, even if you're an amateur in not working much at all, it's still important to have a contract with a client. I don't care if it's a birthday party to
Absolutely.
trade shows or whatever you're doing, as far as whether you're getting $50 or $50,000.
They need to have some skin in the game. You need a deposit. You need to have a deposit.
Do you have like a set deposit, like a percentage or price
You know what?
or value?
I try and get 50% these days. I used to get maybe between probably 25 to 30%. But, we're dealing with big companies. Most of my clients are fairly large companies. And for me to have to float them for 60 or 90 days until I get paid, that's really not something I care to do anymore.
So that's why you tell them 50% up front?
50% up front. And I tell them 50% and the other balance on or before the show date. So they can get that to me at the show.
So it's not like net 30 after the...
No, I try to get that second check at the show. And the net 30 or 60, depending on my client, would be for my actual expenses, which would be air, hotel, meals, and I would compile that after the show and then send them a receipt with the receipts.
Do you prefer a per diem, or you just charge them like if you have a sandwich?
Whatever it is. I'd lose.
Whether you have a steak or sandwich?
You lose. I always found that if I did a per diem, that I would lose in the long run. Because different cities are, San Francisco and New York City, very different than going to,
Denver.
Yeah, Denver. It's very different. It's very expensive. If I gave them a per diem in New York City, I'd have to have, pizza and a sandwich. And who wants to have that every day? Breakfast in New York City, even at a modest diner, is, $25.
So when you were saying that you will bill them later for actual expenses, do you have a limit as to saying, because some places, as you say, it might be higher or lower, saying I'll send you receipts after the show for the balance due. And sometimes they might question you and say, well, but what if you go out and have steak for every meal and you charge us $500 a day? Or
you learn not to be a pig.
Yeah, but they don't know you, particularly if you just finish a Zoom meeting and you're talking with them for the first time.
If they do know, I do have conversations with people, and I do try and build a relationship before my first show. I do have several conversations with the client. I'm not there to take advantage of their expense account. That's not why I'm there. I have a self-imposed limit. I self-impose a limit on myself.
Sure.
If I decide I want to go for a steak at a high-end steak place, sometimes my client will take me out for dinner.
Sure, of course.
And that's a meal I don't have to. And if they pay me a per diem, they would be losing.
That's true too.
So if they take me out for dinner, so that's fine. But if I want to go out for an expensive dinner, I don't feel that the client needs to pay for my expensive dinner.
I see.
So I have a limit. Usually it's $20 for breakfast, about $20 for lunch, and about $35 to $40 for dinner.
Really?
That's my limit. Anything over and above that, I'll take it, and I can pretty much do that almost anywhere.
Sure.
And if it's in New York and it's $25 for breakfast, or if it's in San Francisco and it's, I'm in a convention center, they know what it costs in the convention center for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm giving them receipts. They can see I'm having a sandwich and a bottle of water.
Yeah, you're not getting crazy.
They know what it costs. Having this, and they know what it costs.
Right.
It's not like I'm not giving them receipts and say, well, this is how much it is.
So basically what you're negotiating with them is just how much per day or for the show that you will charge.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's usually the same, unless there's something extraordinary that they need me to do. Like bring an illusion in the show.
Right. You say the same, you mean from show to show, so it doesn't
client
vary,
to client. Everybody pays the same.
Okay.
Whether it's a small client or a big client, a big name everybody pays the same.
It doesn't matter whether also if there are 10,000 or 100,000 people at the show?
Nope.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if there are 1,000 people at the show.
Yeah. Because it takes just as much of your time. That's why I look at it.
If I'm giving them 2 days of my time,
it
doesn't matter. I'm not the one who's in charge of the trade show. I'm there to help them maximize their experience.
Right.
Whether there's 500 people there or 50,000 people there, I'm there to get them the most people. If there are 500 there, I'm sure that I will see every one of those 500 people. Something that they may not have been able to do without me.
Right.
So they're getting the same benefit, and they're getting the same number of days. There's no reason they should pay less.
Well, there are some shows which might be more local, or they're smaller. They're home shows or things which the local Home Depot guys or somebody comes out, and that's open to the public. And it's a little bit different kind of an audience who walks through that kind of a show versus corporate executives.
Right. That's not really a trade show. Those are consumer shows. And I don't really do too many of those.
I was going to say, because they don't pay.
No, and there's no reason for them to have somebody there. To me, look, if it's a local show.
Like a boat show or something.
Look, yeah. Well, the boat shows is, yes, a consumer show, but it's a huge show. And those are very, very big shows. And those are shows that I have done.
Boat shows and car shows.
I haven't done the car shows. That's not really something that I've done, but I worked for a big
boat
company.
Like Evan Root or something.
Kawasaki. I did shows for them for probably 10 years. And I did all of the boat shows in New York, the Miami, the LA boat show. I did, 8 or 10 boat shows a year for them for 10 years. And
so that's different from a consumer show that we're talking about. That's just a
correct. Yeah, it's a big. They got
big, lawn and
huge,
gutters,
gigantic shows. Not the shows where local merchants come in.
Okay,
You have the Long Island Garden Show, for example, where you have landscaping companies from Long Island. Roof and gutter people and the leaf protector. The gutter leaf protector people.
You don't think they need magicians?
Not really.
Okay. Because people are coming looking for...
They're coming and looking.
They're kicking tires.
It's not that kind of show.
Right.
It's not really that kind of show.
These are the people who normally would shop at Home Depot.
What I will say, though, it's a good training ground.
Oh, that's good advice.
It's a good training ground. So, yes, you will not make the kind of money that you're going to make at a regular trade show, but you can get very, very good experience because you could learn about the gutter guard and the leaf people and learn what their product does and how it protects the
garage
building
door openers or whatever.
Whatever that product is, you learn how to build the message into your routine. You learn how to gather the crowd. You learn what tricks you can do, and it's good practice. It's a very, very good practice. And also doing table magic at restaurants. That's great practice as well for honing your material. That's a great way to get the reps in.
And so have you worked, we talked at the very beginning about restaurants, so you have been, you cut your teeth really, you think, on that?
Yeah, I've not so much anymore, but over the years I've done lots and lots of restaurants. I still do tons of private parties and everything from bar and bat mitzvahs to weddings. I've probably done social events, probably close to 100,000 tables.
Yeah.
I mean, just trying to figure it out in my head. Right. Just bar and bat mitzvahs alone in New York, I've probably done 3,500 of them myself.
That's a big business in New York City.
Huge business in New York. Huge business.
I've done some in Houston. In fact, I'm sure you're probably getting to the age that you've seen this also, in which someone will call you and say, well, you did my bat mitzvah, and I'd like for you to do my daughter's.
Absolutely. That happens very frequently now.
Yeah, as we're getting older.
And they remember it. They remember it from their bar and bat mitzvah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they had a great time, and they want the same magician, same experience for their children.
Yeah, so it's amazing. So that's a great feeling. I did a woman's bat mitzvah. She's probably 35 years old now. And she hired me to do her dad's birthday. So she remembered me from her bat mitzvah, 25 years ago, and hired me for her dad's 75th birthday.
Yeah.
So things like that are happening.
You just never know where things are going to be coming from. That someone has seen you and remember you, but you need to have, I think, that good branding, which will allow people to find you over the years, because you can't keep changing your look and your brand and everything, because people will forget who you are. And
the important thing is to do a good enough job that people will remember that. You want to leave people, with a great experience. It's all about the experience that they have.
When you were working restaurants, were you with the same intent? I remember that Charles Green was the third was doing this in Houston, trying to work at good restaurants and country clubs and the bars and restaurants in order to have that right kind of clientele that would book him for trade shows that he can kind of then leverage.
Not necessarily for trade shows. That was never my intent, because New York is not a big trade show market, believe it or not. They have some trade shows.
Not like Chicago?
Not like Chicago at all. Not like Chicago at all. They have some shows in there. If I do 1 or 2 shows a year in New York, it's a lot.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they do have some, but it's not like Las Vegas or Chicago
unions?
or
You think
Orlando.
It has to do with unions?
Huh?
You think it has to do with unions and some of the...
I think that's part of it. I just think also it's expensive to do a trade show in New York where you're having 100,000 people come in.
True.
Vegas is really well equipped to handle it. Orlando is well equipped to handle it.
Good point.
Chicago is
Parking and
well
all that.
equipped to handle it. And it's very expensive. Nobody wants to send their company there and have to spend $300 or $400 a night on a hotel room.
That's right.
When they can go to Las Vegas and you get a $99 room rate and a beautiful...
And reasonable price food, too.
Yeah, reasonable price food in a beautiful hotel, So that's part of the other.
Good point.
Reason.
So the types of restaurants you were working, it didn't matter whether it was
mostly for private parties. So they were high-end restaurants.
Okay.
But they were in neighborhoods where I would be able to meet people who were throwing big parties.
Did you busk the tables? In other words, that you were going in and not being employed by the restaurant?
No, I was employed by the restaurant.
Okay. So you were paid whatever.
Yeah.
What do they get in Houston?
A fraction of the amount of money that I would make at a private party.
I was going to say, I don't know, but out there, might be lucky to get $50 an hour.
Yeah, it was more than that. Back when I was in college and did restaurants, that's about what it was. But you're probably looking at, for an evening, probably around... Yeah, somewhere around closer to 100 an hour, 85 an hour, 75 an hour.
Because you're not an employee, you are actually
not an employee, a contract.
Because they got the servers who are getting minimum wage.
Exactly.
And so that's another thing, trying to work with the servers for them to say, hey, you need to see the magician over here, because that will, in working with them, that will increase their tips because they're getting your attention or
And I always make it about the waiter.
That's good.
I always make it about the waiter. In fact, one of my opening things that I do for them, I give them something right when I walk up. This is a gift from your waiter. That's the first thing I say to them. Joe, he sent me over. This is for this little gift for you.
What kind of tchotchke do you give them?
Well, it's not tchotchke. It's a locked. It's a locked box.
Oh, okay.
And they just look at it, and they go, "Where's the key?" And I hold it out.
Yeah.
And I reach over just as they're going to grab it. I take it back and I put it in my pocket. I say, "This isn't going to be easy. You're going to have to work for this." And that's my approach to the table.
Okay. I like that. That's good.
And at the end, they get a unique gift.
Can you share that?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's John Allen's destination box, and they get the signed card at the end with their name on it.
The signed card, right. I thought
a one-of-a-kind gift.
Never
so
be repeated.
It's very cool.
Yes.
Very cool way to get to the table. It's a great opener. I've gotten a lot of mileage with that trick, and John knows it.
Good recommendation right there then, too. When you're working those restaurants, how do you get to them? Are they more open in New York to having magicians come in and work these high-end restaurants, or you really have to work hard to get them to...
You have to work hard like anything else.
Yeah.
People they don't get it until they see it. And sometimes people don't even want to see it. Either the restaurant's busy enough. Where I live now, there's some beautiful restaurants. They don't need me.
Yeah.
They don't need me because the restaurant is beautiful. The view that people get out of most of it, because I live on the other side of the Hudson River from New York City, right on the water. So our backyard is the entire skyline of Manhattan.
Wow.
So there are probably 10 restaurants along the stretch where we live that have that view of Manhattan. They don't need me.
Right.
They have the view of Manhattan.
They don't want to take away from... Sure. That makes sense.
And you learn that. Right. But they will recommend me for private parties. They'll recommend me for weddings or bar mitzvahs, and they're happy to do that.
And when you're
that's another end of the business for them.
And when you're doing a corporate party, then do you do strolling cocktails, I assume, as well as
absolutely.
after dinner type stand-up
Tons
things?
of those. Stand-up show. I do a mind reading show. I don't do so much magic anymore.
Yeah.
Join the club. Like anybody else. Well, and it's not
as we get older.
It's not because I don't know magic.
I still like to haul the stuff.
It's not even I don't like to haul the
for me.
stuff. I find, I don't know if I'm just, I don't know what it is, but the reaction you get from a mentalism show is way different than you get from doing a magic show.
Which I was trying to get to
And it's
earlier.
not about me not liking magic.
No.
And it's me not being a good magician. I think I'm a pretty good magician.
You are. I understand. Agree with that. I was going to say, though, back on trade shows, do you think mentalism works in trade show environment to try to get somebody?
It does, but I won't do only mentalism at the trade show. I just that's not a good fit for me. I think, and it's not a good way for me to get my messaging in all the time. So I do one or two mentalism pieces,
but not to beginning to attract them to
not
the booth.
to attract them.
It's
to
a
the
middle
booth.
piece.
It's a middle piece, or just
like a
before
book
the
test
ending,
or something, or
book
maybe
test,
a watch
or
trick,
a peek, or a billet routine, or something. I know there's a bunch of things that I do, but it's not. I only do one piece in a show. I won't do a whole mentalism trade show set.
I would think that'd kill. I mean that it would die. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. I do a blindfold routine in my trade show set sometimes, but I'll only do it once a day. And I tell people, come back at 4:00 if you want to see something really special.
just once a day. Because I was doing one time at a trade show doing a night's tour where we had a television screen, and I had a blindfold. I was doing some magic up to that point, and then as I was doing the night's tour, then every once in a while I would peel off the blindfold just to look at the audience and say, and whenever I would get them to the next number, let's say like 16 or whatever, I'd say, and we have 16 different patents for this product, and da-da-da-da-da. And I also, when I take off the mask, make sure people hadn't left. I see I'm getting more and more people because they're thinking, what's happening over there
the
with
blindfold.
It's the blindfold, exactly,
Absolutely.
that's bringing...
But only do it once a day because the blindfold's a lot of wear and tear on your face.
Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing it like 6 times a day.
Well, because it's not just a blindfold. It's the coins. It's
I
the
don't do all
tape.
that. I just have
It's
a
the
blindfold.
blindfold. You know,
Okay.
it's the duct tape on your face.
Okay, I understand
You can't
that.
do that more
No.
than once a day. But I tell people early in the day at 4:00, come back. We're going to be doing, and that's at the end of the day, and that's a difficult time to get a crowd.
The second
But
sight.
sure enough, 4:00.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there. And they see something
But
special.
they don't even know what
They don't
you're
even know
talking
what
about.
They don't even know what it's going to be.
They're just saying, come back for something
Come
special.
back for something special at 4:00.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's the end of the day, and it's just a great way to get people to come back.
Wow.
And then during, they'll come, I get my usual crowds during the day, and at 4:00, when things are, all the other exhibits are dying down, my client has, sometimes 50, 60, 100 people standing in the aisle. So,
So as we start to wrap up, what is the website where people can go to get your lecture notes and other information?
well, my corporate website is trafficstoppers.com, and the order page for my trade show handbook is trafficstoppers.com/handbook. And that's to order the Modern Trade Show Handbook.
Right. And, of course, the Penguin Lecture.
Penguin Lecture, sometimes people could send me an email or just go to Penguin. Penguin still has that available.
If they want to reach you, email, how can they get you?
info@trafficstoppers.com.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
As we do close, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word, and I always like to know what it is that are people, what's important to you? What's your philosophy?
So, see, none of your guests ever really think about this in advance. I've heard. I didn't know you were going to, but you ask this question at every podcast.
Every time.
And they say, I didn't know you were going to ask me that. How's that possible?
But you're a listener, so you
But
know.
I'm a listener. But this is something that has been my philosophy for a long time. And it's, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. And that's my philosophy.
That's true. And that's why I always see a smile on your face, because you have been loving everything, and you are involved with so many things, as you said, with from restaurants and corporate parties and bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and everything all over the country, as well as trade shows. That just keeping your fun and you're enjoying it, and so you're not working. You're just loving every day.
Having a good time.
You're having a good time. Well, I certainly had a good time today.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally had a chance to do this.
My friend, this has been far too long, but I appreciate the time of you sitting down with us.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So for the Magic Word Podcast, that's my buddy, it's Seth Kramer. This is Scotty out. Thank you very much, Seth, for being my guest this week and also for your patience as long as it's taken to finally release this episode. But the information was really gold. That was really some golden advice in there, and I love it. I mentioned the first of this episode that Seth was going to be giving away something. Let me also say that he's got a special deal for a limited time as well, that you can get not only his copy of a Magician's Trade Show Handbook, but also his Penguin Lecture, the two of those at a discounted rate. If you'll go to the website at the Magic Word Podcast, it gives a little bit more detail on where you can go to order that and sending him an email. But basically, it was $95. He's got the two of those marked down to $75. But while you're at the website at themagicwordpodcast.com, please enter the contest. This is a contest where 2 copies of Trade Show Handbook will be given away, and he will be sending those postpaid in the U.S. If it's outside the U.S., then we can calculate whatever the foreign postage is. And if you agree to reimburse him for the foreign postage, if you're a winner, then he will send those to you when you pay for the postage to get it to wherever outside of the U.S. But if you are living domestically, that is postpaid. So all you have to do is just put in your name and email address, and then a randomly selected name, or 2 names actually, will be selected over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to leave this contest open for a couple of weeks, so it'll be into 2023 before we actually draw those names. Well, again, we're going into the new year, so I want everyone to be careful and to watch your step because you carry precious cargo, and I want you to be careful out there, and I hope that next year brings you great prosperity and good health and fortune and joy as well. And so until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember that if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. This is Scotty out, and Happy New Year.